For most of the 20th century, Boeing was the most trusted machine maker on Earth. When you stepped onto a Boeing jet, you were trusting a company that believed, almost religiously, in one idea. The engineering comes first, and the money follows. Then, somewhere around the turn of the century, that belief quietly flipped. The money came first, and the engineering was told to keep up. And the story of how that flip happened slowly, deliberately, with spreadsheets and applause from Wall Street, is one of the most important business stories of our time. Because Boeing didn't fail because of one broken part. It failed because of an idea. Start with what Boeing used to be. This was a company founded and run by engineers, people who could read a blueprint and feel in their gut whether a wing would hold. For decades, the person at the top usually came up through the factory and the drawing board. The culture had a famous, almost stubborn rule. Get the plane right, whatever it costs, and the profits will take care of themselves. It sounds naive. It wasn't. That obsession is exactly why Boeing jets earn a reputation as some of the safest, most reliable machines humans have ever mass-produced. The engineering wasn't a cost to be managed. It was the entire product. The turning point came in 1997, when Boeing merged with a rival called McDonnell Douglas. On paper, Boeing won. It was the bigger, healthier company. But there's a line insiders still repeat. McDonnell Douglas bought Boeing with Boeing's own money, because the leaders and the financial mindset that took over came from the other side. The new priority wasn't the perfect plane. It was the stock price. Leadership eventually moved the headquarters away from the factories in Seattle all the way to Chicago, putting physical distance between the people running the numbers and the people building the wings. That distance was the whole point. The bosses no longer wanted to smell the factory. They wanted to watch the share price. Now here's where it gets concrete, and where the new philosophy did its real damage: outsourcing. Building a jet is staggeringly complex, and Boeing's old strength was that it controlled that complexity in-house. Its own engineers, its own factories, its own deep knowledge of every rivet. The new financial logic saw all of that as expensive and inefficient. So Boeing began handing huge chunks of the work to outside suppliers around the world. The reasoning looked brilliant on a spreadsheet. Let other companies carry the cost and the risk, and Boeing keeps the profit. On its 787 Dreamliner, Boeing pushed this to the extreme, outsourcing the design and manufacture of major sections of the aircraft to dozens of suppliers across the globe. And on the spreadsheet, it worked beautifully for a while. With less money tied up in factories and workers, Boeing had more cash to do the thing Wall Street loves most: hand it back to shareholders. Over roughly the 6 years before the crisis, Boeing spent something like $40 billion buying back its own stock. Think about that number. Buying back stock makes each remaining share worth more, which lifts the price, which makes investors and executives richer. But it builds nothing. $40 billion that did not go into new factories, new engineers, or a genuinely new airplane. It went into making the stock look good. The company that once said, "Get the plane right and the profits will follow," had reversed the sentence entirely. Which brings us to the 737 MAX. Boeing's great rival, Airbus, had launched a more fuel-efficient jet, and airlines were lining up. Boeing faced a choice: spend years and a fortune designing a genuinely new aircraft, or bolt bigger, more efficient engines onto its decades-old 737 design and rush it to market. The cost-first culture chose speed, but the bigger engines changed how the plane handled. So Boeing added a piece of software to quietly correct the plane's behavior in the background. A system the pilots were barely told about, fed by a single sensor with no backup. To avoid the cost of retraining pilots on a new plane, the whole point was to make the MAX feel exactly like the old 737. The corner they cut was the corner that mattered most. In 2018 and 2019, two 737 MAX jets crashed within 5 months of each other. 346 people died. The software, fed by that single failing sensor, pushed the plane's noses down, and the pilots, who didn't even know the system existed, couldn't recover. The entire global fleet of MAX jets was grounded for the better part of 2 years. The financial damage ran to tens of billions of dollars, dwarfing whatever Boeing had saved by rushing. But the deeper damage was to the one asset Boeing had spent a century building and could not buy back with any amount of cash: trust. The company that was once a synonym for safety had become a cautionary tale. Now let me push back on the easy version of this story, because greedy executives killed people is too simple and lets the real lesson off the hook. The individual engineers at Boeing were still brilliant. The factory workers still cared. The failure wasn't a lack of talent. It was a system that slowly stopped listening to that talent. When engineers raised concerns, the financial culture's instinct was to ask how much fixing it would cost and whether the schedule could survive it. Decision by decision, none of which felt catastrophic on its own, the company optimized for the share price and quietly traded away the margin of safety that had been its entire reason for existing. No single villain, 1,000 reasonable-looking choices, all pointing the same way. So here's the real lesson, and it reaches far beyond airplanes. Every company is built on a culture, a quiet answer to the question, what do we actually care about most? For old Boeing, the answer was the machine. For new Boeing, the answer became the stock. And a culture is almost invisible until the day it's tested. When the pressure came, when the rival's plane forced a hard choice, the culture decided. It chose the schedule over the sensor, the buyback over the new design, the share price over the slow, expensive, unglamorous work of getting it exactly right. The spreadsheet looked great the entire way down. So the next time you hear that a company is unlocking value, improving efficiency, or returning cash to shareholders, ask the quieter question underneath it. What is the company choosing to stop investing in to make those numbers shine? Sometimes the answer is harmless fat, and sometimes it's the very thing that made the company worth trusting in the first place. The deep, expensive, invisible competence that doesn't show up on a quarterly report until the moment it's gone, and a plane is falling out of the sky. Boeing's tragedy is the proof. You can financially engineer almost anything except the laws of physics. If you want a next breakdown, subscribe. One new company every few days. Next time, we'll pull apart a brand that convinced millions of people to pay beer prices for a can of water.